this is Jana with Purl Together. This week I'm going to share with you my knitting journal. Now I know everybody keeps track of their projects on Ravelry or Knit Companion or both, and that's totally fine. I think that's perfectly wonderful, and I do quite a bit of that as well. But I also like to keep a hard copy paper knitting journal, and there's a few reasons for this. One is because Ravelry's free. Knit Companion may or may not be free depending on what version you use, but where we upload our photos and details and write notes on Ravelry, that's totally free and that's awesome. I think it's a fantastic tool. However, have you ever heard the saying, don't build a house on rented land? So Ravelry could, in theory, go away anytime. Like, I don't have any control over the owners of Ravelry and whether they choose to quit, pursue a different career, do whatever they want to do. Not that they would. I'm not saying that. Don't get me wrong here. I'm just saying it's a free service, and while I love that, I don't have any guarantee it's going to be there next year or 10 years from now. So I really like to have a paper hard copy historical diary or journal, if you will, of my projects, what needles I've used, what yarn I've used, notes that I've taken, and photos. And then, you know, maybe 20 years from now, if Ravelry's not around, although I have no reason to think it wouldn't be, but who knows if the internet will be around 20 years from now. But anyway, down the road, my kids would have that resource. It's like a scrapbook for knitting, and I just kind of like I like it. I like to do that. I also like to go back and look through it. So the first one that I made is just, actually, my daughter put this together for me, and I'll show you more about it up close. But this is an A5 size, which is approximately 5.5-ish by 8. Look up A5. I'm not exactly sure of the dimensions. But the point is that I have all these like photos and stuff and notes in here, and I've really enjoyed putting that together. So we'll take a closer look in just a second. And before we do, I want to give a warm thank you and a welcome to our brand new patron. Thanks so much to Shirley Rivera for helping support our channel. Patrons like Shirley help me bring these videos to you each and every week and help keep the channel going, help defray some of the costs of that. So thanks so much to all the patrons, and a hearty welcome to Shirley this week. If you want to learn how you can become a patron, also head on over to patreon.com/Purl Together, and you can see what benefits that I offer in exchange for a small monthly pledge. Okay, let's take a look at my knitting journal. This first one, I have a couple of them. This first one is just a traveler's notebook insert that my daughter made. It's super cool. I found some scrapbook paper that had, you know, rope, which is plied and kind of reminded me of yarn. And then we just cut out this saying that says, do all things with love and great care. That was also part of this like pad of scrapbook paper that we found. I think at like Michael's or somewhere like that. Anyway, so this is just an insert that she made, and it has it's an A5 size. It has some paper that's dot grid, and this came from a pad of paper by Rhodia, and then she just bound it for me with stitching, and then she poked holes and actually hand stitched it with thread. So it's kind of cool. It's holds, let's see, I think this started out being like 15 or 16 pages folded in half equals like 64 front and back pages. So this is just an example of an older project that I had. This was a baby surprise jacket by Elizabeth Zimmerman, made it for a friend, and it just has all the details. So this section right here, this is actually a stamp that I had made, rubberstamps.com or something like that. I forget. I'll put the link down below in the video description where you can have a stamp made. I just picked the size I wanted and designated what fields I wanted, and it came. And then I just have this giant ink pad that I bought off Amazon, and then I just stamp each page so I don't have to rewrite all the things. So I just have like a ready-made form for myself. And you can customize that however you want. I just custom ordered a stamp. So here's a shawl that I made quite a while ago. So you can see I just print photos, and I have the pattern, the dates that it, you know, it was a work in progress. Maybe with socks particularly, it seems like it takes a really long time just because it might be in my bag for several days and not get worked on until I'm, you know, sitting in the car waiting or whatever. Anyway, I have all the pertinent details here, any notes that I did, and then photos on subsequent pages. So yeah, I kind of like that. Anyway, you can see what I've got going on. This project actually frogged, and it frogged the entire shawl due to mistakes in cables early on. This was a video that I did about frogging it. I just couldn't live with the mistakes that I knew happened down here. You can watch the video if you're interested in that. So anyway, you see I've made more than one pair of these mittens, so I have more than one photo. So this is just this like booklet that, like I said, my daughter made, and it's pretty awesome. Here's the harvest cardigan I made for my sister. And then here we come up to Christmas time. I'm skipping a bunch of pages, but you get the idea, right? This is how I've chosen to set up my knitting journal. And this was pretty much last year. There's the back page. And then I have a different one going right now. Again, this is just scrapbook paper and a traveler's notebook insert that my daughter made for me. Thanks so much. So I just found this little thing, glued it on the front, really liked it. And then on the inside, it says inspire, dream, achieve, amaze, hustle, and dare. And yeah, that's all a little cheesy, but I like it. So you can see I got into the Harriet's hat and the Fair Isle stuff at the beginning of this year. Actually, kind of in December is when I started. So there's several pages dedicated to, whoops, there we go. Several pages dedicated to those projects. And then, you know, all the Harriet's hat and headband type stuff. So, you know, this smudginess happens just because I mashed the stamp on the ink pad too hard. But anyway, so that's my knitting journal, and I just like to keep track of all the things. It just makes me happy to scroll back through here and see how much I've done and what I've really enjoyed doing. This was the mosaic shawl that we did for Knit Along. You probably saw me post that on my Instagram. And I just, you know, have any pertinent notes about what I did. Increase the main color section up to 120 stitches for a larger size. Right, so you get the idea. Now you can print these tiny photos. This is kind of cool. I recently got an HP Sprocket, and it prints these tiny 2x3 photos. So that's kind of neat for scrapbooking, or if you're into bullet journaling. And I'll put a link down below to where I found that. And then my most recent one was the Find Your Fade Shawl by Andrea Mowry. And I did make quite a few notes here because I only used 4 colors, and my color changes were in different places than the pattern recommends. So that's handy if I ever go back and make another one. So that's the most recent entry. This is my current journal, and so everything's blank after that. So you can also purchase ready-made knitting journals, knitting crochet books from Amazon, and I'll put a link down below for that. Okay, I hope you found those ideas helpful. If you don't have a daughter or you're not inclined to make one of these inserts yourself, then I have a couple of other suggestions. There is an actual knitting journal per se on Amazon. I'll put a link to that down below. Also, you could just use these soft inserts, which is just a commercially made product similar to what I'm using here. It's just that dot grade paper, and it's just an insert, and you could do the same thing that I did. This paper is kind of an ivory off-white color. I really like the ones that my daughter made because they're white, and I prefer that as a background for photos and printing or handwriting. But these definitely would work. You can use a Moleskine journal. You can buy those that are lined or blank or with dot grid. Any kind of a bullet journal thing will work. Now, the reason I like the soft cover though is because you add photos, and as you add samples, then it tends to kind of have an alligator mouth, right? So it tends to get a little thicker as you do that. So that's all right. Now, as for my swatches and actually paper printed patterns, I have a 3-ring binder that kind of corresponds with my knitting journal that has those swatches that I've kept, that I've put in a plastic sleeve protector, as well as the patterns that I've printed, if I've chosen to print a pattern. The combination of those two is how I prefer to archive all of my projects for later review. All right, if you find these videos helpful, click the thumbs up, click subscribe, and I'll see you next time.